Farm. We're here with Beverly Wheeler Mastrim, and we invite you to take a tour with us through some of the most significant moments of Wheeler Farm and this house. Lessons on putting up fruit.
Oh, good.
And you talked about putting up fruit in your book. So can you explain to us a little bit of the process of being ready for the winter and what it meant to put up fruit or put up food?
Well, September was the big month of putting up fruit. And my memory of that, of course, I was going to school, but we would walk down the lane, halfway down the lane, we could get that nice aroma of ketchup. I think probably ketchup took the longest to make because of how thick it was in the line. But I also remember the peaches. And I'm just astounded today about the price of peaches. I mean, when, let's see, we would go to Brigham City to get peaches, and I think they were about $5 a bushel. But now, I don't know what the price is. I think they're about $1 a piece. But yeah, Mother did a lot of what we call putting up fruit. Pears, apples, everything that you can think of. And one of my favorite things she did was mustard pickles. And I look for them in the grocery store and I can't find them. But anyway, that's one of the things I remember.
What kind of things did you grow right here on the farm that you could?
What was that?
What kind of fruits or vegetables did you grow right here on the farm that you could?
We had a large vegetable garden out where the corn is for the kids. And peas were a big thing. We thought we were hard done by because we had to pick so many peas. But then when I saw how many peas it took to fill a quart bottle, then I thought, well, maybe we got it good. But, and of course, beans, that was another big item that Mother would can. And beets, they were wonderful. And, one thing I don't think that a lot of people know about are parsnips. And they were so good. And of course that was a root vegetable that you could just leave in the ground during the winter, just cover them up a little bit, and then dig around them in the spring. And just a matter of peeling them, just like any other vegetable.
Did you trade with nearby neighbors for certain foods or during the winter?
During the winter, let's see, I think it was just before Christmas. Ramaselli's, the next door neighbor, they made a big thing out of making sausage and salami. And so they would come down and help Dad with his pigs. And then he would go up there and help them with their winter meal, or whatever you want to call it. But one thing I thought was quite interesting is during the springtime, I was friends with the daughter, Albina, and she said, "You want to see our cellar?" So I went down and saw the cellar, and here in the cellar on strings was all this salami hanging out to dry. And that was just something they would have, in the summertime when they go out and work and cut off a piece of salami and a piece of bread. That would be their lunch. But that was one of the times that neighbor helped neighbor. And when it came to, I think something having to be fixed, if my dad couldn't fix it, then Joe could. Joe couldn't fix something, then Dad would go up there and help them out.
What was your favorite room in this house, and
The favorite room?
Yeah.
Oh, the kitchen. I don't know, so many aromas, and something cooking, and then of course we'd all be sitting at this table similar. This is probably it, I don't know, but it would unfold and come clear out to the middle of the room. And of course the family would sit around, and Grandpa Wheeler would be at the head of the table. And at the table, I remember Mother always had a nice tray or platter of vegetables, and they're with meat in the center. I told Mom, I says, I don't want any vegetables. So I'd get up and go in the pantry and make a sandwich. And I think of that time when my mother, in the memory of my mother, and I'm thinking when she sees me eat now with all these vegetables, she's kind of smiling down at me. But I love, of course, being good for you. I love vegetables and fruits. And it's my grandkids, they say, well, I talk to them about what they're eating, and they'll say, well, we're just eating organic, just like you used to, Grandma. So, yeah, everything was organic down here for sure.
Where did you like to play on the farm?
Oh, I think it was in the summertime when, after the high water from the spring runoff had gone down to a normal level, we'd find holes, swing holes from the rushing water, and how it would spin the dirt and the rocks and everything. And I had a favorite one up here just above the two ponds that are there. And we would make our own diving board. I think we did a good job, But the thing about it, I don't know how we didn't, how the diving board didn't go in with us, but yeah, that was one of my favorite times. Or a watermelon bus. We'd have a lot of watermelon bus. And we got the watermelons from a neighbor. We didn't grow watermelons, but at night we'd kind of raid the watermelon patch and then bring them back. And if we thought we didn't like one of the watermelons, we'd just crash it, take the center out. Yeah, that was a fun time.
What were the kind of chores that men did on the farm and that women did? And were they similar or
What chores on the farm that I did?
Yeah, what kind of chores did women do typically on the farm,
okay.
and the men did?
Well, Dad and Mom just had two girls. And so we were made, Gina and I, being the two daughters, we kind of did a lot of chores that, the boys, if they'd had any, would do. And, oh gosh, one of them was when they would, what we said, was putting up hay. And Dad and Grandpa had a property up in Union, and it was all alfalfa. And when it was cut and put in piles and everything, then we'd ride the wagon up there, and Gene and I would tromp the hay. They'd throw the hay up, and we'd tromp it down, And Dad, being the fun person he was, one time he threw a snake up. Of course, we squealed. The snake probably went down to the bottom of the haystack, but anyway, that was one of the chores.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with cows and a barn, Grandpa Wheeler's chore was he would clean after the cows every morning and every night. And he would really have those gutters spotless. And anyway, the only time, I don't know if you want to hear this part of it, but I was fortunate enough to go to China when it just opened after Mao's government, and nothing had changed for 35, 50 years. And thinking of gutters, for the cows, that was what they used then for the people. I thought, oh my goodness, how fortunate we are. Every time I go into the lovely restrooms, in restaurants, different places, I think, oh my gosh, how lucky, how fortunate we are. But anyway.
Well, speaking of plumbing, I read in the book that, your grandfather was a little hesitant to bring in plumbing into the home because that was kind of a novel idea to have a toilet where you eat and sleep.
Yeah.
So
we used to call them crannies. Still out there. I don't think I ever. Well, let's see. I moved from here in 1942, and all the time I lived down here, I don't think.
Still have the cranny.
No, he always used that. Yeah.
I like that. Tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming an artist and painting such beautiful work on the farm.
Yeah, I was probably about 5, 6 years old, and I was out walking around, and here I saw this artist, a man. He was all set up. He had his easel, he had his canvas, he had his paints. He was out here by this large elm tree, American elm tree. And he was painting one of the horses with its head over the gate to the barn. And I watched him paint. And I thought, oh, wonderful. It was just like magic. So after he left, I came in the house, and I had been taking music lessons. And I took my, what do you call it?
Music book?
The music stand. And I imagined it was an easel, and I got a piece of old blind for my canvas, and I happened to have some poster paints. And I went out in the grove and picked some poppies, and it was just tried to imitate it. But that was the beginning of my art career.
So your first painting was of poppies, is that right?
Yeah. And I did paint them later on when I was in my 40s. So, yeah.
And then you took classes and things like that?
I went up to university for about 4 years. All I took was art. And then I took a correspondence course from, at that time, the famous, at that time it was called the Famous Artist Course. And there were quite famous artists, but I'd do work assignments and send them in and then get a mark. But, and then I was on my own. And, but when I talk about China, I was fortunate enough to be on a Don Kingman workshop. And I thought, goodness, I'm a long way from home. A long way from home, starting down here, and then, 40 years later to be with Don Kingman in China. I mean, it's just hard to fathom.
So when you paint the farm, do you try to imagine what it was like as your childhood, or?
No, I pretty well just arrange what's in front of me. Yeah. I have a painting now. I had to wait for the smoke to get out of the valley. And now it's pretty hazy, but that's okay. And then the trees are changing, so into all those golds, so it might be a year from now before I finish it.
What kind of this is off subject, but what kind of plants do you remember on the farm that you like to paint? Or
Grandma Wheeler loved her flowers, and in front of the house was a lot of yellow roses. I don't know the name of it, but it was a bush. And then, of course, she had snowballs down by the hedge. And then out here was a garden of just old-fashioned English flowers, snapdragons and asters and zinnias, just what we plant today. She loved flowers.
can you tell us a little bit about the dairy? What kinds of things you had to do with the milk to process it and sell it? And
Oh, well now, when I started milking cows, it was after they had discontinued the dairy about delivering, but I do remember about them having a milk truck. In fact, they had a touring car and they changed the touring car into a milk truck. And the dairy was called Rosebud Dairy. And I know the process then was not only getting the milk from the cows, but working sometime in the milk house where they'd cool the milk, and then Grandpa, that was another thing that Grandpa Wheeler did, was wash the bottles to see to it that they were clean. And do they still have the separator down there in the milk house? Oh, wonderful.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then they had the process of separating the milk from the cream.
Mm-hmm.
And often the cream would land up here at our